Good morning and welcome to the Torah Outreach Program Erev Shabbos Burst of Inspiration. Today's Burst of Inspiration is being sponsored by Mr. Mark Bodkins. The Ilui Nishmas, in memory of our father, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Chaim, whose yahrzeit is this coming Tuesday. This week's Parsha, Parshas Shelach. Whenever I talk about this week's Parsha, I always say it's the saddest Parsha in the Torah. Because it was in this week's Parsha that the spies, the 12 spies were sent into Israel. Came back, 10 out of 12 came back with a negative report. The Jewish people decided, because of how they were pressured by the 10 and their negative report, that they didn't want to go in, and they cried. They came back on the 8th of Av. That night, the night that they cried, was the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. And God said, "You're crying for nothing. I'll give you something to cry about." And he was Koveya, he set this date up for crying throughout the many, many generations. This was the day that the first temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed. There was a decree that the people in the desert that had just heard what the spies said had to travel the desert for 40 years before they could enter the land. And even through more modern history, Spanish Inquisition started on Tisha B'Av. World War I started on Tisha B'Av. And anybody who knows about history knows that World War II was just a reaction to World War I. So it's a very, very sad parsha. But there are a lot of things we can learn. A lot of things we can learn on things we shouldn't do, attitudes we shouldn't have from what we see. The spies came back with a negative report because they saw things and they took it the wrong way, and they told people about it and they took it the wrong way. One of them was they saw people burying their dead all over the country. And they said, it's a land that eats up their people. It's a land that eats up the people that live there. When in actuality, Hashem made a nace that a lot of people died during that time, so the inhabitants of the country would be involved in funerals and mourning and not pay any attention to the spies that were walking through the country. But they didn't take it that way. They looked at it from the bad. They looked at it negatively. We are taught to be a people of optimism. So many terrible things throughout the millennia, throughout the thousands of years of our history, so many terrible things have happened to the Jewish people. Not a generation that goes by that can say that nothing happened to our generation, as we see now. But the rabbis set a time. 3 weeks from Shavas B'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, until Tisha B'Av, and then Tisha B'Av itself being the most intense time, where we mourn all losses and all pain and suffering of our people. But the rest of the time, we don't. We don't talk about the pain and the suffering. We have to get it out once a year. But the rest of the time, we look to the future. We look at the positive. We look at everything that Hashem has done for us. And we are told the best way to live life is put a positive spin on it, on everything. The story I just recently saw, the Klosenberger Rebbe suffered in the camps together with the Jewish people. At one point, a Nazi came up to him, a Nazi officer, with a smile. And he said, you say in your prayers, Ata v'chartan mikol amim, you have chosen us among the other nations. Ahavta osanu, you loved us. Where is your chosen nation now? Where's the love that your God shows you now? Do you still believe that? The Rebbe looked at the Nazi officer right in the face, and he said, I believe it more now than ever. Because he said, I see how you're treating us, and I see how low you can stoop below anything that any of us can do. We have very special neshamas, we have very special souls. We can't stoop this low. Not only that, I also see that no matter what you do to us, and no matter how much you try to humiliate us and destroy us, we're still here. We're still here. And with that, believe it or not, the Rebbe began to sing a song. Ashreinu ma tov chalkeinu. How happy is our portion. O ma yafa Yerushalayim, and how beautiful is our inheritance. And he started dancing. The way we know this story is because it was told by the Kloisenberger Rebbe himself, who survived the war, who remarried after losing his wife and I think 11 children. He remarried, he had more children, he began again, and he built up his Hasidus. He built up, he brought more Hasidim back to him. He built up the backbone and the aspirations of anyone that was close with him. He even eventually moved to Israel and opened up a hospital. He continued to build and grow the Jewish people from being downtrodden, humiliated, and threatened. How did he do it? Attitude. Attitude. Look on the bright side. We are a people of optimism. We are a people that looks for the good. We look for the good in others, and we look for the good in ourselves, and we look for the good in our situation. Ashreinu ma tov chalkeinu. How happy we are. How great is our portion. Umanayim garalenu. And how beautiful is our lot. Chams.